Oh, Lord. Hmm.
All right, welcome and good morning, everyone. It is 11 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. It's great to see everyone here today. If we haven't met before, my name is Zane May, and I work for the Center for Organizational Development and Collaboration at the Community Engagement Institute. If you're interested in learning more about CEI and the work that we do, you can find us online and browse our social media or our website. I'd also invite you to reach out to any of us to schedule a meeting or start a conversation. I'm joined here today by Patricia Houston, who's going to lead us in our first workshop of the series. Patricia is going to be talking to us about the power of silence. This 5-part workshop series as a whole is focused on the ways that we can improve our communication to be better prepared to navigate challenges with resilience and intention. If you have any technical issues during the meeting, please feel free to message me in the chat. I'll also put my email address in the chat for you to send an email if something happens, and I'll be happy to try to help you resolve those tech issues to the best of my ability. We've only got about an hour here today, so I want to hand it over to Patricia, who's going to kick us off and lead us through this workshop, The Power of Silence. Patricia, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we can see your slides. It's looking good. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm excited about our topic and excited to be invited to present today for the Rise to the Challenge. My topic on today is the power of silence. And as Zane has talked, I guess I wasn't too silent during that video, but that was the first time I had really saw it in this beautiful video, but seeing myself was like, oh, Lord, that I was in there. So it tickled me a little bit and I was like, oh, Lord, seeing myself. But I appreciate the opportunity to come to you and talk to you about the power of silence and how important it is in our communication and in our work and what we're doing. So on today, we are going to talk about, it used to be the strong and silent type in today's world that demands involved. Now we demand involved, transparent, and effective communication. That is a challenge in this season, but in this session, we will discuss silence function in our interactions and how it can be used and managed, and how silence can be used strategically to support our communicating better. When we look at that strong silent type, it used to be in early Hollywood years, the term the strong silent type was coined to describe a male actor who would just be, that person in the background that had all the strength and confidence and would come and save the world and didn't have to use a lot of words or a lot of conversation. Well, in our world today, we have become more instant in our communication with social media and with texting and with our cell phones. We're more in contact interact with each other and we do a lot more communicating. It has become where when you are in any kind of relationships and you're texting, you're expecting text back and communication back. And it has spilled over into our work world where there's an expectation of this back and forth in a conversation, and silence can sometimes be perceived as being rude or can make us uncomfortable or do those kind of things. So all these wonderful gadgets to keep us communicating and doing that has caused a shift sometimes in our way of communicating and how we can utilize or use power, or how silence is, the perception of silence is. Somewhere along this way, the strong silent type became the silent treatment. So the silent treatment is when somebody refuses to communicate or refuses to talk, and it's a part of a punishment or emotional manipulation or control. And so it's seen as that, and it's seen as something that is negative. And so I want to share on today, I'm going to share a quote from Thomas Carlyle, who he got this from ancient Egypt, and he used this line in a book of poetry that he had written, and it's a Proverbs, and it says, "Speech is silver and silence is gold." Thomas Carlyle talks about silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves together, that at length they may emerge, fully formed and majestic, into the daylight of life, which they are thenceforth to rule. I took a pause of silence, and you may have thought, oh, did she freeze? Oh, was that meant? What? Did she lose her train of thought? What happened there? Using silence can cause in a great place of allowing people to be able to really think about what you're putting on the screen. In a world where sometimes we just talk and talk and talk, sometimes you're unable to really absorb what's being presented or what's being given to you to absorb. So I really wanted you to absorb it. The reason why it was so important for you to absorb it, because this is the basis of this presentation. It is really important that silence is golden and speech is silver. We look at gold, sometimes silver and gold on the same level, maybe. If some people love silver, some people love gold, but gold is kind of that standard that's out there. And so if silence is over speech, then okay, so what do we do in that silence? And it's that opportunity for us, and we'll share more about being able to gather our thoughts, being able to think about what we're going to speak about and being able to share it in a way. So we'll talk about that. But fashion themselves together, great things fashion themselves together in silence. And when they emerge, they're fully formed, they're majestic, and they're into the daylight of life, which they are therefore always to rule. And sometimes we always say you can't take back what you say, right? It's really hard to take it back or to erase it or not remember it anymore. And so that's really really strong thought that, you know, what you speak is out there and it's going to rule. It's going to do whatever it is you have sent it out there to do, right? I want to do a breakout before we get started, and I want you to break out in your thoughts. I want you to think about, as you think about Thomas Carlyle's quote and what he's talked about, how do you believe silence functions in your current interactions with others now? How does silence work for you? How do you see it? How do you view it in your space? Zane, let me know when you're ready. I probably might have came a little too quick for you there. Let's see.
No, I'm ready. We're going.
You're ready?
Yeah, we'll send you in the breakout rooms. You should
7 minutes.
Land in a room with 4 to 5 people, and Patricia's saying 7 minutes, so that will bring us back around 11:15 or 11:16.
Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you were able to share in your groups, and I would love to hear some of what you came up with, maybe in the chat, of how you believe silence functions in your current interactions with others now. So if you'll lighten up the chat, I'll continue and I'll come to some of those, mention some of what you learned or what you may have observed. When we think about silence and think about how it happens, and sometimes, processing, reflecting time. Sometimes we see it as something that's disruptive, or it is seen as negative. And sometimes when we have silence that happens, we become anxious, or we have anxiety, or we feel like we need to fill the gap, or we need to jump in, and it can be uncomfortable in a meeting or a large group. Yes. Kendra said we mentioned how comfortable in silence is different with in-person meetings compared to online. I feel like I need to feel more airtime online. Yeah, when people are virtual and you're not in contact, it's really hard to read what's happening in the room or what's going on in the room. Georgina says, I mentioned that it's definitely isn't inherent for me, but after seeing it unfolding with positive results, it can definitely be motivating to use again. Yes. You know, if you were raised and people use silence as the silent treatment, it is difficult for you to be comfortable in silence because you think somebody's mad at you, or you think somebody's disappointed in you, or you think that they're punishing you for some reason. And when we process it, it's perceived as disinterested. Yes, Chelsea, thank you. Awkward. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like a waste of time. Yes, when we're silent, right? A waste of time. I wonder if we get that from school, when they used to make us be quiet. They make us be quiet and we're not doing anything. We finished our work and there's nothing else to do. And so maybe we get it from that. Monica says it can make me feel like I haven't made a connection with the donor or resident I'm talking with. Right, it can be seen as that. Jen, nonverbals are very important when there is silence. Chelsea, I love that. Working with young adults is hard to sit in silence because they've not been raised in a digitally quiet world. I tell you, I went on going to do a little sidebar. I went to a workshop with my daughter-in-law, and I went, and she wakes up with music going. It's like, okay, listen. We have quiet time. Can we have quiet time to begin our day? But her constant, she goes to bed with her earphones on. It's a constant kind of thing. So really interesting. Well, gonna move along. How silence functions in our interaction. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked about sometimes how we get anxious in silence when there's a lull in the conversation. We are guilty of jumping in to share our thoughts or respond to keep a conversation going. We put so much pressure on ourselves to think of the perfect or correct thing to say that as soon as we experience a second or two of silence, we panic. This often causes us to say things we wish we hadn't without thinking them through. So it causes us sometimes to say things that we wish we hadn't shared or we shouldn't have put out there. But because of our wanting to fill the silence, we say things that are sometimes out of character for us, or things that shouldn't have been said and should have stayed quiet. When we choose to allow silence, and what we do when it's presented to us, this tests our communication abilities. When we choose to allow silence to happen, and what we do when it's presented to us, this tests our communication ability. So silence functions for us when we allow silence, and what we do with it when it comes to us, when it's presented to us. It helps us with our communication. Silence functions. Silence can help us or them collect our thoughts So using that time as a brief time to be able to collect your thoughts. If you are in the midst of a review, or you're in the midst of having a difficult conversation, or you are in the midst of having a conversation that requires them, you're asking them about an ideal or something like that, giving time and space to be able to think about it instead of blurting out the first thing that comes to the mind, or doing those kind of things, it helps us collect our thoughts when there is silence. Silence can help us or them calm our message. If there is a angry message that needs to come forth, or there is anxiety around this message that needs to be put out there, or there are some sensitive information that you need to share, it helps us calm our message. It helps us formulate what we need to say so that we can say it in a way that's going to be impactful and received. Silence can help us or them reduce our ums. You'll hear me say a lot in this presentation, right? Because I am sharing. So in that, sometimes it helps us reduce it because we know exactly what we want to say, and in that silence, we have a calmness that comes over us, and we become confident in the message that we're trying to relay. And so it helps us not have as many ums. Silence can allow us or them to join the conversation, giving people space to be able to come into the conversation. Sometimes when there's a lot of back and forth in a conversation, especially in a team meeting, in a team setting, it's difficult for those that are maybe introverts, or maybe have some cultural difference where they don't speak over others, to join in the conversation. So this allows them to be able to join in the conversation when there is some silence. Silence can allow key points to sink in. That's what I did when I did the saying from Tom Carlisle. Just pause for a moment and allow you to be able to just sit with what was been said and be able to bring it in. So being able to do that. So silence functions in our world. It helps us to breathe. It helps us to be able to, I'm checking the chat. Yes, Kimberly. I usually say the wrong thing when I'm trying to fill silence. Right. Sometimes when you put out a not fully formed thought, sometimes it can derail a conversation. Kathy, silence can be an opportunity to hear what's being said. Yes. And when you process, it's perceived as disinterest. I get that from Chelsea. All right. How silence can be managed. It's very important how we read the room. Getting comfortable with and incorporating the sound of silence into our everyday communication will pay huge dividends in the world of communication and in our everyday conversations. It will become a way to be an example to others that are in your team meetings, that are in your homes, in your space, that you embrace silence, and that silence is important. But when you learn to read the room, understand when silence is needed and when it's not. Sometimes when it's needed for someone. If you're talking to someone and the conversation is a little rough, and it's really about, we talk about parent-child conversations, that you're trying to giving them an opportunity to be in silence, to be able to think about what's being said, to think about what you're putting out there or what's going on. Learning how to read that room and understand when you need silence and when it's not needed. When it's not needed, those conversations when you're at the dinner table and you are talking and you are just going back and forth, silence may not be, that's not the opportunity to be quiet and silent. Is to jump in and talk about whatever's being talked in that conversation. So understanding, read the room. Don't be quick to jump in if silence is needed to ponder or reflect. Don't be too quick. So you're reading the room. And so when you hear silence, don't be too quick to jump in when there's a need to ponder or reflect on what's being said. Notice others, and if they are being silent because they are waiting on permission to speak, that's when silence is needed. So understand that, read that room, understanding what's going on, understand what cultures you have in the room. There are some cultures that value not talking over each other. Some cultures need permission to speak in a space, and so they need to be called upon or asked to join the conversation. So making sure you read the room and understand the cultures that you have in the room, understand if silence is needed or it's not, and understand if there's an opportunity for silence to allow you to ponder or reflect on something that's being said. So make sure you read the room. Change your perception of silence. Deal with your own discomfort and others' discomfort. So when you start doing this silent or having this silence happen in your space, make sure you explain why the silence. Let's take a moment and think about this. Let's take a moment, just take a moment and just breathe for a minute. Just take a moment and collect your thoughts. Just take a moment. Deal with your own discomfort. So if you know that you're that one that jumps in or that one that has something to say, I know that's something that I work on to hold myself together, to give opportunities that are in the room, but to take a moment to think about what I'm wanting to say or how I want to say it. And so make sure you deal with your own discomfort and be mindful of your own, what's going on in you. If you feel anxiety rising in you, if you feel like you are wanting to speak quickly on a topic, take a moment and just collect your thoughts and collect yourself. The other one is the plan for silence. This is major. If you are preparing a meeting agenda that requires input from those attending, plan in your silence time to give them a moment to think before responding. Sometimes we like to fill up our agendas with all these things, and then people cannot jump in and really wholly participate. Sometimes it's the first time they're hearing what you're asking. Sometimes they are needing a minute to collect their thoughts and be able to think about that. So if you're preparing a meeting agenda, make sure you plan some time for silence or a silent time for people to ponder, especially if you're wanting them to respond. If you are planning a speech and you have some key points, plan for a few seconds of silence to let the points sink in before continuing. This allows them to be able to think about what you're saying and then to bring it with you, bring it with them onto the next things that you're talking about. Use it to help you pace yourself and breathe. I just took a breath. And add an agreement to your meeting. How can it be managed? When we do agreements for our meetings to talk about, how to locate yourself, so using it in your meetings, and that is agreement that we honor productive silence. Silence that helps us respond, respect, and reflect. We honor that. We honor that silence. So if someone that would look like in your meeting, somebody says, I need a minute to think about that, we honor that. We honor productive silence. And it can be a part of your meeting and a part of your meeting agreements. All right, we're going to do another quick breakout. Take a moment and share in your group. After listening to what I've shared thus far, how may you manage or use silence going forth in your interactions? Welcome back. Welcome back.
Okay, with our practice of the lesson and in our breakout group, we needed a little more time.
I want to know who all practiced silence during that breakout.
Some more than others.
Some more than others. Right. Yeah, sometimes even in those meetings, taking a moment to breathe and to talk. So share some of the things that you are going to take forward. And while you're thinking and you're putting in the chat, I wanted to highlight a couple of comments that I see in the chat. And one was from Sheridan. She said, we had a great discussion for both sides. And this was for the first breakout, Sides of Silence. Some of us mentioned how we work with mental health and that silence is not beneficial for those struggling. But we also discussed how silence allows us to let others share their struggles, listen to empathize rather than to respond. And that's one of my things in my next session. But I thought that was so profound. Yes, that's reading the room, understanding what the other person needs from you and how silence may be perceived negatively or not as being understanding whatever their situation or whatever they're bringing to you, or their thoughts of what they think of silence in their own, how they've grown up, their own way, and how they internalize what silence is. And the other thing I picked out was Georgina's, which kind of talks along that same thing. It says, as someone who struggles with hypervigilance, silence is sometimes difficult for me to perceive from others. And so sometimes you struggle, you don't know what that silence is when it comes from someone else. But it's important for us to get to a place where we can relax in even somebody else's silence, right? Until they truly speak. And I know there's some of us, when we've been in long-term relationships, we know when somebody's mad at us, right? We know when they are, yeah, we know. So we can get some of that, but sometimes in some of our relationships, we can't read them as well or read what's happening there. And so I always try to err on the positive side, that they're taking a moment to collect their thoughts, and whatever they share after that is going to give me a clue to what this silence was all about or what was going on. Ellen says we talked a bit. Talked a bit about the challenges with allowing silence in a virtual hybrid work environment, how it's sometimes easier to do it in person. Yes, and we are curious in how it might change in future generations. One of the things, even in the virtual world, if you plan silence and they know that the silence is coming and the expectation in that silence. So when you say, let's take a moment and think about this and come back with ideas about blah, blah, blah. So the same way kind of like we do in breakout rooms, but that silence, what that looks like and how that looks. And I think the more and more we use it, the more and more acceptable it would be. People will learn to how powerful it is. Let's see. Sheridan, my action item, be comfortable responding with, let me think about this. Yes, instead of an immediate response that may be incorrect or makes me seem unprofessional. I like that. Take communication. Go ahead.
Patricia, can I just say something? I don't know if you saw it, but Monica Rice, I just love it. And some people, I love the acronym WAIT. Why am I talking?
Yes.
I love
Yes.
it. I love
Yes.
Wait, why am I talking? I love that too. Let me write that down.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, when you do the wait, or you say, why am I talking? It's like, okay, so let me deal with, am I anxious? Am I feeling like I'm the only one with the answer in the room? Am I feeling like I can, from a cultural sense, am I feeling like I have to be heard? And so I have to speak up. I have to own my place in the room, and I have to, make sure I'm seen and heard from a cultural stance. And so in that wait, I really have to deal with what is it that is causing me to want to always jump in and do that. So thank you so much, Francis, for bringing that out. All right. Hi, Chad. I will unapologetically, you and these words, share how much I appreciate that I'm benefited from working with the, no, love you, thank you. Patricia, yes. Thank you, Chad. Doris, with a child having a problem, my silence helps find the real problem. Yes. when you're dealing with a child who's having a problem, silence. And one of the things I'll share too is that it gives you information. When you're silent and the other person's talking, you will get more information than you trying to jump in and fix it or do that kind of thing. I love that. It helps you find the real problem. Gabby, it's important not to fill silence with distractions.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. Yes, because we will go to our phone in a minute. We will. And now in that virtual world, you can be doing a whole different thing in that world, right? So we need to be silent and present. Kristen says silence can be used for different reasons and it's okay. It's a versatile technique, right? It's not just for one thing. Tanya says, I think using silence after asking a difficult question in a meeting to allow everyone to gather thoughts, to have a quick talking, folks have the quick talk. Wait, that was it. Okay, love that. And understanding that, so we get to know ourselves. So if you know you're one of those people that are quick talking and ready to jump in and ready to do, taking that moment to think about Wade and taking that moment to silence and allow others to come forth in the room to share and thought. And one thing about when other people are sharing, it's amazing the collaboration that goes on in the room and the way you find out that other people are thinking the same thing you're thinking, right? And so, and being able to build off of what's being said in that space.
Patricia, if I may add, I cannot type as fast as some of these people, and I'm just going to throw it out there. But so one of the things, so I want to go along with that, because one of the things that was brought up in our conversation is that the and I can't, Aaron, I think it was Aaron, but I can't remember, I'm sorry, brought up the fact that they witnessed that you don't honor somebody's thought process and to be silent in that moment. Like, so that person said, I need to think about this for a minute. And instead what happened is the person said, okay, well, you think about that, but we're moving on to the next topic. So not allowing them that space to share and then hopefully gathering more thought and information from that. I thought that was like, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
That's good.
That is really, really good. And that's it. We will move on while you think about it. And so then that person needed that space and to honor that space. So that last bullet that I gave you in the last one that talked about in your meetings, that this is a part of your meeting agreement, that you're going to honor silence. So when someone says, I need a moment, you just give them the moment to be able to collect their thoughts and be able to share and be a part of this conversation. Love that. Thank you, Francis. All right. Shauna, personal story, old school, pen and paper taker. Here, the silence to let folks make notes is something. And I'm terrible at myself when I get excited about sharing information with others. Really gotta work on that. Right. Old school pen and paper note taker. Right. Let folks catch up, right? Let them catch up and take notes. All righty, we have just a few more minutes. Thank you all so much for this wonderful conversation and being able to talk about silence and the power of silence and how it can be used to really, really help you in your communication. How to silence support for better communication. This was our last area or section, and it talks about how important it is for us to understand that the absence of communication, it's not the absence of communication. Silence is not the absence of communication, but instead can be a productive communication strategy. It can be productive. Silence can create a space, a listening space, which gives you opportunity to breathe and respond. In this hurry up world, we can take the opportunity to create a listening space, a space that allows people to be able to communicate at a relaxed rate instead of a tit for tat or all back and forth, constant moving forward, but giving a listening space to be able to share the thoughts and the heart of whoever you are in conversation with. So in our interactions, I'm talking mostly about work. So like talking to our coworkers, giving that listening space to be able to hear. A lot of times people want to be heard. They want to be heard in those spaces. And so creating those listening spaces is what silence does. It creates those. Silence can help indicate empathy. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Not rushing, sitting with a person in their problem and their situation shows empathy of being with them, even as they are talking about whatever their situation is or what's going on with them, and being able to give them that opportunity to share. And sometimes we don't have the words to share, or even if we have the words to share, taking a moment and just sitting in that silence and sitting with them. Silence empowers us to listen effectively and purposefully. Most of us listen only to respond, not to understand, but silence enables us to really understand what the other person is saying and hence deploy our best, most effective response. So it saves time. It improves relationships. So I'm going back to the save time, because if you have to keep repeating what you're saying, if you have to keep, or they're not, it's not getting there. Sometimes taking that silence, taking that to listen more purposely, listen to what they say, take a pause, and then share what it is that you're trying to say. So it saves time. You don't have to keep repeating. It improves relationships. There's an understanding that happens in that space of silence and being able to catch up with the thoughts of the other person, and the person to be able to catch up with what you're saying. So building that silence, it builds new knowledge. When the other person is speaking, you are learning things from what they are saying. It builds new knowledge. Silence improves our restraint. It's easy to get frustrated at the workplace. Bureaucracy, mediocrity, and politics can frequently cause us to flare up and react, but doing so only undermines both our health and our image. Practice silence in the face of chaos. Wait for the calmer, more restrained response. Over time, your threshold for chaos increases, and you become a calmer person who's capable of eliciting a more rational response from your mind. So it helps us create a listening space. It helps us to reflect empathy. It empowers us to listen effectively and purposefully, and it improves our ability to be restrained. We're going to pause for about 15 seconds and honor our silence. I want to leave you with where we began. Speech is silver and silence is golden. Understanding that silence will help you fashion great things together, your words, your thoughts, that they may emerge fully formed, majestic, into the daylight of life. I want you to concentrate on life. Our interactions with one another is about life, whether it's work, whether it's home, whether it's whatever we're doing. The interaction is about life. And so our words coming into the daylight of life, and they are therefore to rule. And so they speak and they direct and they move people. And so making sure that we understand the power of silence and working on ourselves to make sure we are okay in that silence and in using it in our daily lives. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm going to turn it back over to Zane.
Wow. Everyone, please help me thank Patricia for kicking us off with this workshop. This was wonderful. I learned a lot. There's a lot of great insight, and I really felt the power of silence that you showed in using it in this meeting. So use your reactions, use your chat. If you want to clap on camera with me, Thank you, Patricia. Really appreciate it. All right, everyone. We're nearing the hour of noon and lunch. I'm going to encourage you, if you're able to find a place where you can sit in some silence and practice reflecting and thinking about silence and just feeling it before you get back into your computer or your work or having lunch with a colleague. I'm going to place an evaluation link in the chat for you. We really appreciate getting your feedback to know how we're doing, whether our content is helping you at work or in your personal life. There's also some areas where you can share with us what trainings and workshops would be beneficial to you in the future. We heard from folks last time that effective communication was an important topic, and that helped us to craft the current series that we have now. I hope you're able to join us next week. My colleague Cy Rogers will be leading a workshop on communicating with different types of people. I'm really excited for you to get to learn from Cy and his information that might help you if you're struggling to communicate with different people, whether it's at work or in your personal lives. You'll hopefully walk away with some new knowledge and insight and tips and tricks to improve communication with those folks. If you have any questions after the series or after this meeting ends, please reach out to me and I'll connect you with Patricia. My email is going to be in chat again. We'd love to connect offline and continue a conversation with you. Thank you so much for being here. Take these next 6 minutes and go find some silence, and I hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you both. It was wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.